What up, world? It's your boy John, and we're back with yet another episode of the Just No BS podcast. As always, I'm joined with my two co hosts,
Dev? Yeah.
and yeah, we back at it again. Back to back weeks. Let's keep it up.
Nah, man. I don't
Going
know
on.
how that's gonna work. Back to back. What, are we gonna have a three-peat after that?
No, we ain't the Chicago Bulls. No three peats over here. It's a new era.
We'll see. We'll see. We will see. It's a lot going on in the world. We may have to be back here, or we may need some personal time.
Yeah, gotta
Depending on
keep
what
y'all
happens.
guessing a little bit.
Yeah.
All jokes aside, first things first, happy birthday, Cal. It was this week. Just for you weirdos out there, we're not going to tell you exactly when, but happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. You know
You
what?
are another year older.
I
Again,
am.
your particular age, we're not telling y'all, but just another year older.
Exactly. And I will say one of my favorite parts of growing old and having a birthday around this time, like in the summer, is some of the most important people to the world were born in June. Respectfully, June is a lit month to be born in. So I would contend it arguably has the most distinguished people in world history born within this 31 day, window. So shout out to us, the Cancers and the Geminis.
Mhm. Well, in other quick hitting news, all right, Cal, I need my five because OKC won it. Not in six though, in seven, but they won it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That was tough to watch, man.
Yeah, no. So we got to talk about it real quick. Quick hitter. I feel bad for Hallie, man, but I was listening to Matt Barnes on all the Smoke podcast.
Mhm.
He was talking about the injury bug, and bro, from I think he said 1970 to 2023, there were 48 Achilles tears total throughout. So that's like 50 years of NBA basketball. There've been like 40 some odd Achilles tears. Just this playoffs alone, we had four.
Yeah.
That is wild, and I don't know. I'm no doctor. I'm no scientist, but that whole calf injury into Achilles thing is starting to look real suspect. Like
Yeah. You're not
more and
wrong.
more of these players are gonna be like, "Oh, I got a calf injury. Sit your butt down."
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were important players to get these injuries too, because like Jason Tatum is going to be out until like well into the next season.
Pretty much, that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be a year of recovery, and then they come back the next year.
Yeah, the science is great, but it's just like I'm always, especially just being like the type of sports fan that I am, I want to see like the best people compete at their best. Like there have been like championships that me being a Bama fan that we've won, and I'm kind of like but the other team wasn't like they didn't have their best players healthy or whatever, so it's kind of like yes we won, but like you kind of want to see the best people out there, and then just seeing how he got injured. It wasn't even like a dirty malicious play. It was just a regular basketball play. He just took did a his power foot, his pivot that went down for the explosion just kind of gave out. And Jason, to that point with the calf into the Achilles injury, like yeah, I had a when I was playing sports, I had a calf injury first, and then I had an MCL tear afterwards. Um, and if you know anything about the body, like being a running back, you're getting hit every play below the waist. Somebody's trying to chop block you. If you're strong, like I was, respectfully, I was a stronger guy. People try and tackle you low because it's, just better momentum wise. But yeah, that bad boy, what I think I was only out for, because I was young, I think I was only out for a good 3 weeks with the MCL, I'm sorry, strain, not tear, MCL strain. But that thing still gives me issues to this day. Like I know when it's gonna rain because of that. Um, that's how
Getting
bad
old, man. You're getting old.
it's really like that. But yeah, man, prayers to all of the guys who went down. You never want to see people go down like that, especially if you're like a franchise player. I did think it was beautiful that like as soon as he went down, the benches cleared, everybody was out there. His dad was up in the stands trying to hold it together, and then his family went to the locker room with him. And it's like that's good having a support system like that, you know. But yeah, it was sad, but hey, OKC won. They won. They're going to be terrifying for the next 3 years. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, they got that. They got that.
and it's crazy because with the exception of Shea and Hartenstein, oh, and Caruso, the rest of them are like within their second or third year. There's plenty of room for some of these other players to get into their prime. So OKC is going to be nasty. I do think they need to get a wing that can like play on the wing a little bit, but they're going to be good for a hot minute, man. They really are.
Yeah, and it would have been a great story because we're going to talk about the hero's journey a little bit later. It would have been a great like bookend for OKC to have the capital or whatnot necessary to have brought Kevin Durant back after, because you know Kevin Durant is like a ring hunter. Like in Hunter x Hunter, you got geography hunters, history hunter. He just goes wherever the rings are. So
Nah,
him
man.
being back,
What is it from Yu-Gi-Oh? He's a rare hunter going around trying to steal everybody's rare cards.
I mean,
Yep.
yeah, that
Hmm.
is
uh, no, but
that would have been really cool to see like see Shea get to play with him because I'll be honest, after they went from the Seattle Supersonics to OKC, like I was a really big fan of KD when he came in, Russ, Harden coming off the bench, all those guys, Serge Ibaka, Adams, and just seeing this young group of guys defy defy everything we know about sports and just get up there and win it. And everybody's cool. There's not no weird controversy or anything. Just some good young men getting it done.
you know what's crazy? I saw this on, I want to say it was on Facebook or Instagram the other day, bro. The every MVP that OKC drafted from that era played for the Rockets at one point or another.
Huh.
That's crazy. Yeah. All three of them.
Durant just got traded to the Rockets.
Yeah. Harden.
Westbrook played with what was it? It wasn't
It was
Chris
Chris
Paul.
Paul.
It was Harden.
Oh,
He played with
Harden.
Harden on the Rockets, and Harden went to the Rockets. So yeah, they've all at one point played for the Rockets.
That's crazy.
Yeah. As our not sports ball person, Devin, what do you think of the finals?
Honestly, I enjoyed it. Remember how at the very beginning I said that I really wanted it to be a longer run there? I wanted to go and see some really good games. Both parties played well. That's really all I wanted. So I got to see some just really good games.
Yeah,
No complaints.
yeah. For me, oh, I agree. There were great games. The weakest game was what, game six, and even then, that's Indiana just got hot that game.
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
but for me, my I thought OKC was gonna win because they were the team that hadn't lost back to back much, and I knew that if OKC got two games in a row, they were gonna win it.
That's fair.
So, and that's what happened. It was what they lost game one, won game two, they lost game three, then they got 4-5. They lost game six, and then
Yeah.
they won game seven. So, I that was gonna be my feeling. I'm like, OKC does, of all the teams left in the playoffs, obviously, Indiana and OKC were both the strongest at back-to-back games, but OKC showed it over a longer stretch. So I pretty much after they beat the Nuggets, I was like, yeah, OKC's winning this thing.
That's
But I thought the Nuggets were the second strongest team out of the whole playoff scene. So
I will say this before we, go to something that isn't excluding Devin as much. Um, I will say the one thing that I was really sad about seeing this playoffs was essentially like the inside the NBA on TNT, and seeing like I despise Charles Barkley, but Charles Barkley, Kenny, Shaq, and Ernie, like them kind of bring that to an end. Because as far as my brain goes as a kid, I don't really have a lot of playoff memories where they're not up there. Just having a good time, like critiquing the game from like different positions, different skill sets. Um, and I despise Stephen A. Smith. So seeing him talk every halftime and just bloviate about bullshit, and just be loud and wrong. I'm not a big fan of him. So I'm like this is the end of an era and it's sad, but we'll see what happens next though. Hopefully.
Real quick before I move on, another funny thing I saw on Facebook via Reels this week, bro. Someone put up a compilation of from like Stephen A. Smith from like what was it, 2009 or 10, all the way to like 2016 of every wrong pick he made, and it was hilarious because this man was wrong like 80% of the time.
Mhm. Which is just
Yeah,
loud and wrong and never comes back and it's like, oh my bad, I read that wrong. He's always like, well, I just like shut up.
yeah.
Shut up. Like, yeah.
And then last thing on the sports thing, Shay Gildress Alexander is like the quiet troll, and I love it. He did a post. What was it the other day when he was like, "Man, in 20, what are we in 2025?" He was like, "In 2022, I was dropping nine. I was getting 9 free throws a game, and no one cared because we was losing. No, I got 11 free throws a game because no one cared because we were losing. Now I got 9 free throws a game, but we winning, and I'm a free throw merchant." Anyway, he's just taking shots at everybody.
Hey man.
Okay.
Because the whole concept is such BS. Because any good scorer, look through the history of the NBA, any good scorer in their best years probably average at least 8 or more free throws a game.
Yeah. I don't
Mhm.
because I agree. Growing up, being somebody who like admired the two guard position, even when I like was playing 2K religiously, like I always was a two guard because I grew up watching the end of Jordan's career, Kobe's career, just a ton of outstanding. Even though Tracy McGrady was a wing, he played the three. Like his scoring output was that of a two guard.
Allen
Um,
Iverson.
Allen Iverson. You just keep on going, looking at these people, James Harden, so on and so forth. Um, and it's the my main complaint always is how he gets those fouls. Because mind you, once Jordan started winning championships, referees were literally just giving him fouls if he got bumped a little bit too tough.
The
Kobe,
Magic Johnson quote: "Don't touch him. It's a foul."
exactly. Kobe Bryant was a terrifying menace from the mid range. So he's gonna pump fake you 3 or 4 times, and you're gonna eventually
You're
jump,
gonna bite on one of them. Yep.
and boom, okay, cool, and he would make it. Or like AI was just a demon. He would just full
That
speed.
man. Yeah, that man threw his body into the trees. He didn't care. Foul, no foul. You didn't call it. You called it. I'm going in.
And Dwayne Wade, before he really got injured for real, he was just taking off.
Oh
And you
six,
had to hit
man.
him. Yeah, you had to hit Wade. But like watching SGA play, I watch some of the fouls that he gets are like new NBA fouls. So like ticky tacky, like he creates the I'm like, I don't. But
Yeah, no,
statistically speaking, he's not that off though. He's not that off.
I agree, but the thing is, again, it's such the way some people talk about it is so disingenuous because like the stuff he does to get some of those fouls are what veterans used to call the tricks of
Yeah,
getting to like
yeah,
yeah, it's just now in the new NBA because the way both the defenses and the way you have to like maneuver on the field, there's more space, so you could see them more. But back when it was clogged, you wouldn't see the quick arm pull to go into the shot motion, and then you wouldn't see it. So it's easier to catch now, and even then, I will agree that I feel like they should just make it a blanket rule across the board that if the offensive player like does a unnatural movement, just wave off the foul. No foul, keep play on, I do
yeah.
wish they would do that more, but there's some of those like there was one where people were talking about how Casey Wallace swiped at someone's hand on the I think it was Halliburton's hand at the top of the key and they just waved it off. Play on. That's how we play at the park. Keep going. But like nothing like some of the stuff I'm just like, all right, y'all are complaining about some nonsense, and then other times with like SGA like does the hand grab and then pulls it to make it look like a foul.
Yeah, I don't
Nah,
like that. I don't like
just
that.
just play on, bro. Like
I'm sorry. Lastly, the thing that adds on to that is also us now. The technology that we have on the court is much better. Like the fact that a foul can happen and they're able to like 360 the camera around and look at you, grab the guy, and but you didn't have that back then. It was
yeah,
live. Everything's like the camera's on a string. We're getting it. You got three angles sometimes, and that
you
was
got
it.
caught in 4K. Like
Yeah,
that's basically what we have now. So
yeah.
oh, so
Congrats to them.
Yeah, like
Mhm.
I love the playoff basketball because this playoffs, especially this playoff, when you compare it to like the last 3 4 years, they would
Mm.
let these boys play.
Yeah.
Like Giannis was
Mhm.
getting hacked anytime he went to the lane. Freaking what was it? The Denver series. Oh my god, that Denver series. That's still probably my favorite series of the whole playoffs was Denver versus OKC because it was like, oh, y'all gonna stop us here? Counter. I'm a counter your counter. I'm a full counter your counter. They were just literally playing chess the whole series, and I was just like, yep.
We like
And here's my last bar before we move on. If y'all actually want to talk basketball, watch some basketball YouTube channels, especially some good ones like Thinking Basketball or B-Ball Breakdown, because B-Ball Breakdown, this dude is wild. He watched every play, rewound every play of the OKC Indiana series and the series before that to see SGA and his foul baiting just to see if this crap is true. SGA did less of the foul baiting throughout the last two series than anything else he had done previous season. Because SGA, as a real scorer, knows I'm not going to get away with it. I got to do something else.
yeah.
He
He,
said those type of fouls were down like 20%. So
this thing he won. Mm.
the point of basketball is to put the basket in the hoop. How you do it, forget ethical. That's the point of the game. Forget
Yeah.
ethical hoops. The point of the game is to get the basket in the hoop. All right. Enough fun talk. I mean, it's always fun talk, but you know, there wasn't much in terms of quick hitters. We're not going to bring the room down with the whole U.S. Israel Iran thing. We're not doing it back to back episodes.
Mhm.
We're going to wait for more, to develop and get some actual information outside of oh my God, our president dropped the f bomb. Ooh. So outside of that nonsense, we're just going to go straight to our three body breakdown of the episode because strap in. It's going to be a long one. We usually have some more topics to sprinkle out, but this is a pretty big topic because we've been harping about it for the last few weeks. And y'all don't know what media literacy is. So I think it's time to break down why people think or why we think media literacy is going on. So for this particular episode, we're going to talk about media literacy versus understanding identity. Let me explain. For a lot of people watching media, reading books, anime, manga, take your pick. When it comes to any kind of media, part of what some people think is going on is that we identify with characters more than we used to in terms of 1-to-1 ratio. You can always identify with something, but this deepening identification without being able to separate reality from fiction is causing people to connect their morals or their identity with the media they consume. So, we're here to talk about it. And one of my examples is, and Devin's going to be able to back me up on this a little bit, is the Superman versus Batman debate.
We've had that conversation so many times.
Yep. Because, especially since in a couple weeks, the new DC Superman movie is coming out. So, I'm going to start off the conversation by using Superman as an example. When people watch Man of Steel, Zack Snyder, the first thing is, oh, this is such a gritty take of Superman. When in all reality, Superman is not a gritty character. Yes, he's powerful. Yes, he's strong. He has all these things. But that is not the core concept of what makes Superman Superman. Straight up. That's the point. He is supposed to be an illegal alien that bridges the gap between humanity and quote unquote godhood. In other words, what is morally right versus what the powerful can do. And this is why most of Superman's villains are not necessarily about just their strength, but it's about the morality behind them. So, um, showing Superman as a greedy character kind of takes away the fundamental point of what Superman is, which is, I mean, because I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw Man of Steel back in what, oh 08, whenever that movie came out, I liked the movie. I really did. But as I became older, wiser, and started thinking about things a little bit differently, I realized that movie is really bad setup, especially for that DCU at the time. It is really bad because what makes superhero movies great is that the characters are challenged in their moral philosophy. Yes, they're powerful. You'll get some cool action sequences, maybe some flashy CGI. Not the point. The point is every situation you put the character in is supposed to challenge who they are morally, and their powers are just another tool to do that. So Superman's my example, but I'll let Devin take it away with Batman because Batman's always his example.
So when we're talking about Batman, for you guys, what are some of the things that automatically come to mind when you think of Batman?
Nepotism.
Just, okay, that's fair. Fair. I will give you that one. All right.
He owned half the city. He not like that. He owned half the city at birth.
Okay.
Okay, no, I'm joking. For me, the first thing that comes to mind with Batman is therapy. Everybody needs therapy. Just the whole situation. Y'all, Batman, Talia, the Joker, the Riddler. Doesn't matter. They all need therapy. Everybody. Forget throwing them into Arkham Asylum. Y'all need Arkham therapy.
Badly. Yeah.
So I like both of your answers, and the reason why is because a lot of people will just automatically go to the oh hey he's got an unbreakable will, he's a genius, he's the peak of humans and so on and so forth.
Prep
But
time. Prep time.
yeah, that part like oh hey he can win as long as you give him prep time,
He could be
all those
Goku with
things.
prep time.
Man, Batman can beat everyone with prep time because you know what? Hey, it's the writers. They can say whatever he wants. There you go, problem solved. But one of the things that people don't tend to focus on is the fact that, as Cal said there, he's a nepotism baby. He's also been given a large sum of money and a lot of control in his city, but he is a fine example of people not actually using their resources correctly to make correct change. Uh, that is one of the lessons that you should be picking up from that is if given the right resources, how you should use it correctly and how to use it incorrectly. The justice portion. He is so not even just focused on justice, he is obsessed with it. To the point that just as all of his, the criminals that he goes against on a regular basis are obsessed on specific things, to the point of psychopathy, so is he, but just on a different side of that coin. So it should also be a lesson of, hey, you do need something to kind of balance things out. Otherwise, you will be consumed by your obsession. A lot of people don't pick up those lessons. They just see, oh man, look at how he beat up the Joker, and look at how he solved that problem, that the Riddler threw out. Uh, People tend not to pay attention to some of those deeper aspects. They also tend not to pay attention to how his villains also represent different mental health issues over a grand, thing there. So that's why I've always enjoyed Batman. One, for all the cool things, but also because of all those other messages that are being put out there.
And that's the crux of what we're talking about today. You enjoy, yes, you can enjoy the cool, but you should also take the lesson and understand and break it down. And
Mhm.
that is what more and more people are not doing. And this is why we have such a lack of media literacy. Or at least this may be one function of why we have such a lack of literacy. I should say that because, again, I'm no scientist, I'm no sociologist, but this is just a ongoing trend that's becoming more and more pronounced as we kind of review things. Because yes, there are things that are going to be mind wrought. I like a good cop show every once in a while, but that doesn't mean I know the cop show is 100% correct. More often than not, they just show it all completely wrong. But hey, I can separate the fact that hey, this show is very entertaining to the fact that this is unrealistic and we know they don't work like that in real life. And this is what y'all need to learn. What about you, Cal? What you got?
So when I think of gritty superpower tales, I don't think of things immediately in DC and Marvel, for instance. Like my main things, I was jotting them down as you guys are both speaking because it was just like tickling that part of my lizard brain. Like things like Hancock, Jumper, Brightburn, Chronicle.
Great. Yep.
Those are
Mm.
pretty. Those are very like we just got these powers. One of us wants to save the world, the other one of us wants to fix the world. And when you're able to tell the difference between who's trying to save the world, who's going to fix it, there's an implication of fix. One of the main things that I think about why media literacy is going down is because people aren't even able to ascertain the intent of the writer, and that's also a part of it as well. Who is writing this? Who are they writing this for? What story are they trying to communicate? And what should I take from this struggle? Um, Even things because you said Superman and Batman. When I hear things like truth, justice, and the American way, that screams Western imperialism to me. That Western imperialism is not gritty. It's not. Western imperialism is we have more money than this poor country. We're going to castigate, subjugate them, like take as much resources as we can to build ourselves. That's essentially when you look at what Western imperialism is. This country, if it had to be designated a class, it would be necromancer or lich. That's what America is. It is building its power, its prominence, and its dominance off of the death of other things actively at all times. One of the first feature films showcased here in America at the White House was Birth of a Nation. That showed Klansmen doing Klansman shit, you objectifying black people using essentially black fear or fear of the other, like, oh, black men are gonna come and rape people, so it's a justification that we kill them before they even get started. That is Western imperialism. Like, if you don't want to be like, oh, okay, well, that's just America. Look at what the British were doing to the rest of the world before that. Why do
Or
you
the
think you can?
Portuguese or
Thank you.
Spain.
You go
Mm.
places and it's okay. We speak English here. Look at the history of the country that speaks English. Look at the people who speak Spanish. Look at the people who speak Portuguese. Look at these people who speak these predominant languages. They were colonized. They were exploited. You see what I'm saying? They were taken from house and home. That's the other side that, like, I think like things like The Boys and Invincible and stuff like that. Some of these also like these Dark Horse comics and blah get right because there is an ugly side of what a superpowered police force looks like.
Mm.
Period. What was it? Not Watch Dogs. Watchmen.
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 Seeing the other side of that. What does the Manhattan experiment look if you're an adversary of America? You see what I'm saying? Like it's glorious and it's beautiful to us. People, if you're in certain history courses, when you matriculate school, you look at the Oppenheimers and how that looked and everything else like that. It was like, wow, this is a scientific marvel of its time. And it's like, okay, those people died of radiation poisoning though. They couldn't even grow crops over there. There were people who came after the people who got the bombs dropped on them who have cancer as a result of that because they couldn't even properly live off of the land. You see what I'm saying? But here, stateside, it's like, oh well, Superman's great. Like he came up in Middle America, he learned true American values, and they don't even talk about the parts in the comics or in certain media depictions as to where he damn near has to go to war with the United States government because he can't save people in other countries while wearing the red, white, and blue, or the red, blue, and yellow, because it's a symbol of America. So if he steps in, it's now an international warfare because the United States has vested interest in one side. When all of this is compounded. So another sign of like low intelligence, lack of media literacy is where people say things like, you're getting too political with your interpretation of this. Have you looked at the backgrounds of the individuals that are writing these stories? A lot of these people were Jewish writers. A lot of these people are people from marginalized communities and things like that. That's why a lot of entertainment and things like that, these spaces in entertainment, when they're organically filled, are occupied by people who have marginalizing experiences in real life. Period, point blank. Because they're looking and they're aspiring for a world to be a certain way that it currently is not. Thus, they have to go and tell you, they have to plead for their fucking humanity through this medium to y'all idiots. Because they can't just tell you, hey, racism is bad. Sexism is bad. Hegemonic, performative patriarchy and things like that, that doesn't help anybody. Globalism, imperialism, these things are terrible things. once you look at it as the affected person's point of view, and you feeling so prideful, not saying, oh, this would never happen to me, is a successful indicator that this imperialist propaganda has worked on you because you think that you are outside of the purview of oppression. My bad. I care about shit like this. That's why I can sit back and look at certain things, not even superhero stuff. I do. My wife loves Hamilton. Hamilton is rapping slave owners, trying to retexturize some of the worst people to sneeze this side of the Mississippi. Look at what George Washington and the people were doing to these people. Our people, the people native to this land. Look at what they were doing. They tried to make the king a buffoon, a comical relief, like, oh, I'll send a bunch of bombs and cannons to remind you of my love. That's how imperialism works here. We find that comical and hilarious, but look at what this regime has done in the United States, the people of color and disenfranchised people across the diaspora. They're like, oh well, certain people of color and of different ethnic groups, they're disenfranchised. Yes, yes, but per capita, they're worse murderers than us. So instead of us providing resources, we're going to actually starve them from that. And they should pull themselves up by their bootstraps. This is an American dream. This is what they give to you. And my final point is y'all want to know why people laugh at you when it's these marginalized people creating some of these great timeless properties, and why right-leaning media and shit sucks when y'all try and do that, like all of you Prager, you motherfuckers, and everybody else who's
Oh
a
God.
part of that tree, when y'all try and do like new science fiction, not historically accurate stuff, it sucks because you lead with ideology first and not the creative side and having a purpose and a true story to tell. You're coming out condemning something and then trying to write around that like misguided point of view. And that's why you know who you are, the affected demographic, who kind of had that come into Jesus moment when you realize we were laughing at you because you identified with Homelander. That's why it was fucking hilarious to us, because you didn't know that you are the enemy this whole time. You are the person misappropriating power and hurting people, changing narratives, swinging multi-billion-dollar corporations to the side of oppressing people and feeling justified by it. The silencings, the assassinations, the otherings, the deportating of people, like, that is y'all. And if that is not directly you on a day-to-day, you are a sympathizer of that type of activity, which in normal society you should not be comfortable. That's me. I lied. My last bar is when it comes to media
Go
literacy.
off.
Martha.
When it comes to media literacy, going back to one of my first points, understanding the intent of the writer is important. Because although we can look at a flawed character, look at them operating in a flawed situation, understanding what the author is trying to communicate to you is very important. That's why you have a situation like, I personally feel like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is just as important to the American zeitgeist as fucking Touched by an Angel. Because what was the writer's intent? You are not supposed to identify with Dennis, and It's Always Sunny. Just as when you juxtapose that, the moral framework of the father in Touched by an Angel, to where he was so quick to condemn people and look at people living a different lifestyle and everything else like that. And y'all thought that that was cool because that was a middle America evangelical blah blah blah. And it turned out in real life he was an actual rapist. The actor himself in real life, while he portrayed this beautiful bastion of Christianity and God fearingness, he was a rapist. And nothing happened. The people who supported that show still support that show. They have the collector's edition. Some of these people still go to meets and greets and things like that when they were still actively happening before the pandemic. Um, but yeah, no, like the intention is important, and you digesting what is supposed to be digested is also important. Your vision of what you want things to be when it comes to a property does not supersede the intention of the author. It never will. It just doesn't work like that. My bad. I'm passionate about this shit, so Dev. My bad. I get pretty.
No,
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 that's why I said go off.
go off, King.
But yeah,
But no. So one of the points I want to circle back to a little bit. You mentioned how like people don't recognize that Superman is in his comics in many of his stories, he's often almost seen as an agent of the U.S. Many times he has to denounce being a U.S. agent. Usually that leads into like Justice League stuff eventually when they're all pretty much, you
Mm.
know, an international entity of their own for the most part. But regardless of that, super, what makes Superman one of my favorite stories and tellings when done properly is the fact that he is what happens when you try to take a godly figure and give him and he's trying to provide humanity, uplift humanity. So like he is, you know, the actual sense of what policing should be. And I don't mean it in like the current way. I mean like their whole mantra is protect and serve. That is fundamentally what he does. He is here to protect and serve. He often doesn't get involved into politics. He often doesn't really care about, this is why even when Lex Luthor becomes president in many of his stories, he's out here doing his thing anyway, because that's not, he doesn't care. Like his whole purpose is the from the smallest child to the biggest person, I want to make people's lives better. That is his goal. And yes, it's the whole I was raised on a farm, middle America thing, but it's also the duality of his character being from another planet when he could have just like bright burned it and nuked everybody. Instead, he was just like, I care about the place I call home now, and I want to make this place I call home better. Like that is his fundamental purpose. I use gritty when I should have probably said darker, is because everyone takes darker to mean I have to be more violent or whatever, when I'm just like, that's not Superman's character purpose, which is why most of the new properties that involve Superman I don't find appealing. And this is why I'm really looking forward to this current James Gunn version, because it looks like we're getting back to what he's supposed to be as a character. He's supposed to be a person that uplifts all boats. And yes, he's, blue eyed, whatever, but fundamentally, he's a person that tries to make everyone's lives better. And that is him as a character. Yes, you can tie his, you can include the fact that his power is seen as a threat because he's so powerful, which in and of itself, you know, it's the not Ultron, it's what Vision says. My power makes people want to challenge my power. So
Yeah.
it's like, that is kind of that's the true duality of Superman. His want to do good, just from the mere fact that his power makes people want to challenge him, which is why you have characters like Lobo and Darkseid, because they're just like, oh, you like that? Let me roll up. Like,
Mm.
so it's also one of the things that the original the original writers of Superman really wanted to emphasize is that you can't fix everything with power. That's kind of the point, which is why the best moments of Superman are the things he can't fix, like when he tries to console children with cancer and things like that. Like he fundamentally can't fix those things, but he's there trying to give them hope at a better future. Like this is the fundamental characters, and which is why I hate most of this stuff with Superman now, because it's not getting to what he's supposed to be.
I do think one thing that's really missing from Batman specifically, which if I could just swap a thing from DC to Marvel, it will be J. Jonah Jameson. There needs to be a J. Jonah Jameson for Batman. Someone who is actively tallying up the innocent civilian lives that get taken advantage of due to the people breaking out of Arkham Asylum. Because these Joker and them are killing people every time. It's not like in the comic books, it's a little bit more gritty. They have to get that off. Outside of the Snyder side of things, like they don't really want to show that on the big screen, like how evil some of these villains actually are, and like torturing people, maiming people, blah blah blah. But like if there was like a radio personality or whatever the case may be, that's like, this is October 14th. This is XYZ day of the year. 37 people are now labeled dead or incapacitated due to the inmates breaking out of Arkham Asylum. This is all Batman's fault. Blase. Something to add to that, because he's already battling a psychological war in and of himself. So much so that when his secret identity is Batman, like Bruce Wayne is the costume. I forget what comic it was, or it was two instances. One instance was Wonder Woman had the lasso, and she was essentially going around getting everybody's secret identities. In the
I know which one you're
Justice
talking
League
about.
Hour. And everybody's like, oh, I'm Wally West, or I'm Clark Kent. And then he grabs her up. He's like, I'm Batman. And she's like, what the? I'm Batman. Like even in the movies, in the Christian Bale movies, when everybody was there at the masquerade dinner and all the rich people were wearing masks, Bruce was just out there like, this is my secret identity. My secret identity is Bruce Wayne. Like, I don't know. I think that's dope. Even though I don't fundamentally agree with what Batman is for real, because I mean that is essentially propaganda and paramilitary occupation of a city by way of money. That is kind of what that is. It's kind of what it is. A man got a fucking tank in the basement that he could just pop out anytime he wants to. Um, but there does need to be some place for tougher, tougher ideologies to have commentary around. Like I think Punisher's necessary as well. Is he the best? Nah, he's twisted. He has different levels of PTSD. And when I think gritty, I think him. He's not some ultra power dude. He's out here getting his ass beat. He's getting shot. He's getting stabbed. He's mourning his family actively. Daredevil is like that as well. These are the people when I think gritty, like you're getting worked out here. Like Peter Parker has some of the worst. They treat him like shit
Ooh,
throughout all of the comics. Like
Oh,
his
Jesus,
writers just treat him like trash.
but
yeah. God.
ironically enough, I have to say that Spider-Man throughout most media is the probably, if I had to pick one hero that is the most consistent to his actual character, regardless of who's writing him, when they're writing him, it seems to be Spider-Man. I don't know what it is, but for the most part, they just get this dude's story right. Even
I
that
think it's.
trash. Oh,
I
sorry. Even
oh,
even
go ahead.
that trashy, amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. Those two movies, they still got the key things right. It was just too much happening in the movies, but they got the key stuff right.
Yeah.
And I feel like Spider-Man is the happy medium between Superman and Batman in the sense that he is relatable to everyone. If we want to talk about Batman, one of the reasons why I feel like they'll never have like a J.J. Jameson in Gotham City is because Gotham as a whole is completely corrupt.
That's fair.
From the officials to the people to the villains to the heroes. So there's never going to be someone that's going to call out, oh, hey, this person escapes because of Batman and so on and so forth, because no one cares. Everyone's so focused on their own individual lives that they're not willing to pay attention to, okay, well, what's going to happen if this is done instead of this? Is the whole reason why you have that constant loop of there's a villain, does certain thing, Batman stops the villain, puts them in prison, they break right back out. If you look at that entire prison system, which is not helping any of the villains in the first place be rehabilitated in any way, shape, or form, they're only setting them up to continue being worse and worse criminals, and they have such terrible security that they're able to break out on a regular basis. It tells you a lot about that entire system in itself. Um, that's also why any of the times where they've had Batman and Superman crossovers where Superman's come over to Gotham, despite the fact that Superman naturally uplifts people, he generally has very little effect in Gotham City, and vice versa. Anytime that Batman comes over, it's very rare that Batman's actually doing anything, over with Superman. It's usually his alter ego, Bruce Wayne, that's doing anything in the city. Um, so with Spider-Man, I feel like the city as a whole is representative of people in a normal situation there that just so happens to have superpowered beings around. Spider-Man, at the end of the day, if you took away all of his powers, is still a normal person. You
Not
know,
not not just a normal person, but what people always forget about Spider-Man, which I'm glad they've been showing more and more over the last several movies, is that Spider-Man doesn't beat people by being stronger than them for the most part.
Mhm.
He never rarely does he beat someone by being just straight up better than them. And I'm talking about his his rogues gallery, not the random Joe Blow down the street. Yeah, whatever. I'm talking about
Mhm.
he rarely beats, Stinger, not Stinger, Scorpion,
Scorpion.
Shocker,
Right.
Venom.
Yeah.
Take any one of his rogues gallery, he rarely ever beats them by pure strength. He beats them a combination of his powers and his mind. He is. Everyone forgets that Spider-Man is a top tier scientist. With the exception of the original Spider-Man movies from Sam Raimi, he invents his web fluid. He invents all the tech in his suit. He's constantly fixing issues on the fly. Like regardless of take your pick of majority of his villains, he usually gets wrecked most of the time off rip, has to retreat, come back with some kind of scientific solution to incapacitate them. He rarely uses just pure strength to beat people. Even Kingpin, he usually beats him through like some kind of not political, but some kind of social movement, or
Yeah.
like occasionally it'll be something where he like has to confront him, but that's after Kingpin has done something so despicable that he just straight up has no choice. Like
Right.
Spider-Man, like you said, is the happy medium. Um, and I have to ask Cal a question. Did you see the last Batman movie, the one with Twilight guy,
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Robert Pattinson.
Ron Pattinson? Yeah.
Yes.
So I have to say that was probably my favorite Batman movie of the last decade
Hmm.
I'm not mad
because
at that. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
No.
because that shows not just Batman as the character, but Gotham as the whole as the character.
Mhm.
Most of the time, a lot of these movies leave that out. The Christian Bale ones kind of touch that
Touched on
line.
it. Hmm.
It touches the line and talks about it a lot, but we don't get to see it in action very much in those movies.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think a lot of when you go looking at it now, like in 2025, a lot of the world building and things like that that were done in those Christian Bale movies were as a result of villains forwarding actions. Because as far as where we see not the Batman side, the Bruce Wayne side, it's a static what's the best way that I can say this? It's a static depression from the city, like a very gloomy city. Things are overrun in certain places, but not to the point of it like epidemic calling in the National Guard, blah blah blah, whoop whoop. But it's a stasis of like poverty is around the corner, oppression is prevalent, we are on pins and needles, blah blah blah. But like the pushing action to change the not necessarily the character, but the immediate face of the city is the villain, is the Ra's al Ghul, is Bane. You see
It's
what I'm saying?
Joker.
Like it's the villains pushing it and showing this is what the city is really like. Like not because the city in and of itself is evil, but it's a situation as a result of people being broken and being faithless and like loveless and absent of or like their resources being absent and they're pushed to essentially galvanize behind some bullshit and it works like so much so like the uh Christopher Nolan's favorite scene that he shot in the plane at the beginning where Bane essentially like goes in there disguises himself and you the first thing that I love about it when Bane is there and the dude's acting like he's shooting people in the back of the head and throwing them out the plane and like asking them like yeah I could let you guys free if you tell and he's like yeah why isn't anybody talking and Bane essentially is like why would they why would they be afraid of you if you're essentially shooting someone and then throwing them out of a plane like that's not really a true terror because you're ending their suffering before they actually get to suffer so just that right there just the quiet ramping up and him speaking after none of them spoke is a silent ramp up an emotional tension that's when the not the horns but the bellowing instruments kind of come in and that right like you hear it in the background and then when you see Bane beating the dog shit out of Bruce Wayne in the sewer, you don't have like action thematic movies. It's you're hearing bones get broken, water rushing in the background, him just talking shit. You thought, yeah, you like the darkness or whatever, bitch. I was born in it, molded in it. By the time I saw the sun, I was a grown man. You don't. You're not here. And that is where I think the narrative mastery comes in heavily with Batman. That I feel like I never get that from the Superman comics whatsoever. I'm not put in like a moral questioning or like a wow, this is very it's Superman, the straight the straight tall white guy who had everything kind of put on him. That's a genetic nepotism is his thing too. Like that's the thing. he's
So
he's stronger than everybody, like able to adjust faster than everybody. It's like okay, cool. Like
so that's the thing. Me and Devin have talked about this from basically from the day I met this man. But that's what makes to me Superman more interesting overall is because Superman has the reverse problem Batman has. We as regular people, and this is kind of the crux of our conversation today, we as regular people make are relatively hard to identify with Superman because we, for the most part, are not basically God given all the power and then choosing to diminish our power for the greater good. Name a person that can fundamentally do that. That is basically the crux of Superman's whole story. He is my favorite Superman quote is from Justice League Unlimited when he's fighting Darkseid and he says, I feel like I'm living in a world of glass and I feel like now I can show them what I'm really about because you can take it. We as regular people cannot identify that. So more and more people find Superman as a not uninteresting character because it's harder to relate with Superman. But this is where the imagination and true understanding comes in. If you could fix everything just on your sheer will, would you have the control and the sympathy, the empathy, and the love for all things to not just choose to rule because you think that's right? That is the question of Superman. Superman could fundamentally just take over the planet and force rule whenever he wanted to. But because of the fact that he believes that people should fundamentally make their own choices, be free, yes, quote unquote, God symbolism, ha ha ha. But because he gives people the right to make their own choices, he never fundamentally takes that on himself, albeit without no kind of BS brainwashing or injustice storyline. Like that is the question and the true that's the true moral of the Superman story that is fundamentally misrepresented most of the time, which is why people tend to forget, or at least why people find Superman uninteresting for various reasons. Batman is the I have everything I can do, but I am only human. So as a human, I'm gonna take yes, I have all the money in the world, but I'm going to be the peak human trying to fix things one block at a time, one villain at a time, and constantly obsessing over that. So they're two sides of the same coin coming from two different angles of trying to fix the world, essentially.
And one of the arguments that we've always had about that, and why I've always kind of aligned a little bit more with Batman, is because of what Gotham represents. If you think about it, it's basically like a marsh where everything is muddy and dirty and so on and so forth. Anytime a villain pops up or anytime they're representing something, as you brought up earlier, you know, really at the end of the day, if you look at it from a wide perspective, it's really just bubbles coming up, to the surface there. But at the end of the day, everything is just so dark that there's, at the end of the day, it's still going to fall back to its old ways. No matter what the villains do, no matter how many people are murdered and so on and so forth, the city doesn't change. Because it is always perpetually in that dark area. Batman, despite the fact that yeah, he's got a lot of money, and there are other ways that he could financially try to fix the city. Um, I feel like in some cases, even that wouldn't necessarily work long term, just because it's just like with the villains, they're bubbles that are just kind of coming up to the surface, but it's never making a true change. Everything's going to go back to that dark setting. So Batman constantly fighting, knowing full well that it's just going to revolve back to the same thing over and over, kind of gives me that idea of like, oh, hey, despite how bad your situation is, you should still be fighting for something better, even if you know that you might not see the benefits of that in your lifetime.
Yeah. And
And I think that's something to strive for.
yeah, and ironically, not ironically, this is the point of our conversation. Ironically is the wrong word. Fundamentally, this is why I always say that Batman and Superman are the same. They're two sides of the same coin,
Mhm.
because Batman, they're both essentially what both characters are fighting against is a systematic culture shift. That's what they're both fighting for. Batman is trying to do so via Gotham, and Gotham, he's trying to basically inspire Gotham. People like to say through fear, but I don't think fear or violence is the correct word. It's more through direct action, is what he's trying to fix Gotham with. Where Superman is trying to fix a metropolis or this, corrupt system through symbolism. So we have Superman refusing to take direct action unless he has no other choice. Where Batman's first instinct is to take direct action. I'm gonna go beat the Joker. I'm gonna go solve this crime. I'm gonna go investigate. Where Superman is trying to be like, if I show them a better path, they'll choose the better way.
To
Which are
add
both flawed. But
to add
yes,
to that, yes, Batman does it with direct action in a language that the city understands. Just like with Superman, with his symbolism, is in a language that the people understands.
yeah,
I think that's the key part to that.
facts. And hey, that's some literacy for you, because you should dig deeper than just what is shown on the screen. You should think, it's beyond thinking why is this character acting this way, is why is this character acting this way in this place for this reason for this time.
Mhm.
Jason, to be
Um,
your point where you said essentially you said it in a different way, but there is a responsibility that comes with power. And when it comes with power, can you be trusted to give up power after essentially your term has been served as to where you brought it to where it needed to be? My thing, my point, one of my points of contention when it came to Superman, when it came to that, because although he does have the power to do something like power on par with the god and things like that, as we've seen through a bevy of comics, the man fucking flew backwards enough to turn the earth backwards to reverse time. He went and fought a fake sun. He went to the sun and got powered. Like he's done some
He's
wild.
closed black holes with his bare hands. Yeah, like the power scaling is not what's important here, and it
Yes,
shouldn't be.
that's the reason why I'm like, there's a difference of me digesting the source material because it's like, okay, sure. Although he has the power of a god, the thing that truly makes gods gods is their wisdom and understanding how to create an environment, even though it may be of like free will based and things like that, people are still in a safe and protected environment to actually thrive in this world facilitated, created, or sanctioned by this God. Like that's the wisdom of it. Because if you have no wisdom, but you are strong, yeah, you can be a God, but that just all that is Kratos. If I describe that to ChatGPT, give me the power of a God without any type of discernment, limitation, higher level critical thinking, or empathy, it's gonna spit out Kratos.
so I
Just
would
no.
I would argue that it depends on which gods we're talking about.
Mm,
Because if we're talking about things from the Greek god perspective, uh, well, yes, they had more wisdom than humans. They were still fallible.
Just as
Look
petty,
at
just as
exactly to a higher degree with all of that power.
but that's where I was saying like the wisdom leads because in once you start to talk about intelligence, you're splitting hairs now. So like you see what I'm saying? Like Hermes could be like a logistical mastermind. He would run FedEx and UPS into the fucking ground with just like intelligence, understanding how to deliver something, follow through on expert. Wisdom is if I move this piece right here, this changes the game within the last 7 moves
Mhm.
because I know exactly what you're gonna do. I know exactly what you've already that's a different you see that's a different scale. And essentially Superman being for the better part of canonically how he's depicted, he is immortal for real for real. It's like you don't get wiser. Like you don't you see what I'm saying? You don't figure it
So
out a little bit better. You don't.
so again, I've Superman is my dude as far as like top five superheroes. Like he's in my top five. So that and again, I blame the current iterations of understanding Superman is a misnomer. Like basically from Superman Returns, that's '06 on,
Mhm.
they don't show that properly. Superman, with the exception of the Justice League shows, like I would highly recommend you rewatch Superman the animated series, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, the animated ones,
Okay.
because when you, especially when you get to see how the heroes interact with each other, Superman, just like Batman, is always thinking about his actions. But where the difference lies is the fact that Superman has to always come from it from a place of how does my power affect the situation, where Batman has to always come from it as, if we're going to use him as a counterexample, how does my, or how can I tactically resolve the situation effectively? Like Batman's always looking for the most efficient, least problematic way of resolving a situation. Where Superman has to always consider how does my power fluctuate into this. Yes, most of the time we see Superman just punching things, but do I punch something into this wall? Do I run down there and just stop the volcano? Do I ignore the do I just resolve this situation and ignore the whole government, in general? Like Superman always has to come from it from a power level aspect, if we're going to use that terminology. He's he's the opposite, like obviously he's the opposite of Homelander doesn't give a fuck. He just goes in, does what he fucking leaves. Superman's the guy that actually thought about if he should to even begin with.
And then when it comes to Batman, also using Justice League as a fine example, there is a situation where there's a character, a child, by the name of Ace, who's just she's basically losing control of her powers and everything and just warping reality. Everyone else on the team is trying to deal with it with force. Batman realizes that he has to speak to the enemy in her language there,
As a
which,
child, yeah.
as a child, he realized that, hey, she had never actually truly had a childhood and no one treated her as a person but as a tool. And in her, and this is, I guess, spoilers, but it's been so long that,
It's been
fine,
20
whatever.
years, y'all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you know what? He spends the last moments of her life with her, treating her as a human being. He works with her in a way that she can understand and communicates with her as opposed to treating her like everyone has been. Um, Tying that into like the boys, when it comes to some of the characters there, Starlight. Um, she is considered like a good character, compared to some of the others that are in the seven, which low bar considering Homelander and so on and so forth. Well,
Yeah,
but
far.
incredibly low bar.
uh, and I only got to see about half of the new season or anything. But some of the things that I've seen, it's she's trying to do better and everything, and trying to kind of connect with the people. But I don't know if she's doing a great job of speaking their language and understanding them at that level. Homelander just doesn't care, So of course he's not going to speak the language of the people. Yes, he's going to try to be a symbol in his mind, to the people, but he's really not connecting with them at that level. Starlight's trying. I don't know if she's gotten to that point yet.
So before we look at some different examples as we keep having this conversation, to wrap up my point on Superman, I'm going to use his direct counterpart, not Batman, his direct counterpart to kind of make my final point here. Who is the godlike character in the opposite of Superman? It's another DC character. It's Wonder Woman. She's essentially Superman without the laser beams, like for the most part, in the ever growing power scale. So Wonder Woman takes the Batman route for the most of her stories and comics. She's action based and she's also a demigod. Yet, using your example, Caleb, she doesn't fundamentally get wiser because she's always like I'm
But
not
she,
saying she's exactly like Batman because Batman fundamentally Batman is human, straight
yeah,
up human.
I was literally gonna say this. I was gonna
Yes.
say like
So
it's
with
stunted.
the lifespan of a human, you have to change your ways because it's at a certain point we hit our peaks of physical ability, and as our physical ability wanes, it's just human nature. Our mental ability should be rising. You should be maturing. You should be seeing the world in a different way because you're you're getting less and less time on your clock. Wonder Woman and Superman don't have that issue, generally speaking, because Superman's a little different because most of his stories he doesn't know that he ages slower until much later. So his story's a little different. So take him out the bucket for a good moment here. Wonder Woman, no, she's a god for the most part. From the beginning of her runs, she knows that she's either demigod or godlike status. She's not dying anytime soon. She's thousands of years old. Because of that, she doesn't see time the same way, which is a huge point of being a human. So she takes the same reckless action from year 3 as she would in year 333, 3033. Like, her age, it's her and Thor have almost the same issue where because they are gods and they have a longer lifespan, they're more apt to take the reckless solution. So that fundamentally changes the story. Superman is basically a god trying to be human. Batman is a human trying to affect change on the level of the god. And then you have godlike characters pick another character altogether, and like Wonder Woman, the Greek gods, etc. So like at the end of the day, understanding these characters requires you to think about them fully. I said this when we were talking about the animated year a couple episodes back in Free Run. That type of story would be a lovely Wonder Woman story where you actually break down the fact that she lives so long that she has to almost relearn what it means to live in the society she's part of because she doesn't live in the 80s anymore or she doesn't live in, the Middle Ages. Like, those would actually make wonderful stories, and they almost had it right with the Snyderverse versions. They messed up in Wonder Woman 84, but the original Wonder Woman, that was perfect. So when we look at stories, we have to take full context of what the story is trying to present us. And I think that is the key, one of the key things about media literacy. We have to both understand and yet separate ourselves and take full understanding of the context. So I know Devin's got another example he wants to itch to, but I can also see that look at your face where you want to keep going, Devin. Oh, Cal too.
Yeah.
Take it away, Phyllis.
Please.
Where you said you're essentially talking about the responsibility that has to happen as a result of the power. Yes, there's also a level of responsibility that comes with divinity and immortality as well. So certain things that may be viewed as responsible, conscientious, thought-provoking, and needed in the immediate sense when you're a mortal is very different from when you're a god. You see what I'm saying? Bruce Wayne has a finite life expectancy. White men, even successful white men, have a very finite amount of time that they're here. 85 on average with the best surgeons ever from around the world. Best drugs ever. That's why yeah, y'all have had the conversation between Superman and Batman and everything else like that. Ideologically and success rate, I would move I would move it differently. I want to see how y'all would contend with Batman versus Doctor Doom when it comes to ideologically impacting and affecting for a better life expectancy for the people under their tutelage. And Superman gets to go under Captain America. Because again, on the left side with Superman and Captain America, even though he was a soldier, he was not cool with the Registration Act whatsoever. You see what I'm saying? He was somebody who was literally, fuck the government. I want the people to be able to choose what they want to choose, just like Superman. You see what I'm saying? Even though that was kind of, and then you have the iconography of America as well that's also tied into there. And if you're not paying attention, you don't really know what you're looking at. And then
I
on
mean, the
go ahead.
fact that people don't understand that the iconography of Captain America is, America is is utterly ridiculous. But very real points. to kind of jump board this to Devin real quick, Superman versus Captain America, two different things. Superman spent the majority of his life as a civilian. Captain America spent the majority of his life as a soldier. So that right there changes the conversation. Then when we compare Doctor Doom to Batman, even though technically Doctor Doom majority of the time is a villain and then sometimes anti-villain or anti-hero, he kind of jumps the board and Batman just straight.
You didn't get to that. He got to be Batman got to become Batman before he even had the inkling to become Doctor Doom, though.
No. I agree. What I'm saying is, my point with between the two of them
Okay.
is that, and I'm going to use Batman for example. I'm going to use a concept from Batman as an example. Batman would never use never use the what are the pools called from Ra's al Ghul's place?
Of Lazarus Pits.
Yeah, he would never functionally use the Lazarus Pit to stay immortal. Doctor Doom would.
For sure. For sure.
That's my key point.
For sure.
I know. I'm gonna let Devin take over, but those are the differences. Go ahead.
And I like that you brought up Doctor Doom. One, because he's one of my favorite Marvel villains. I mean, come on. The man's a genius and everything. He is what would happen if you took away all the inhibitions when it comes to what type of strategy you were going to use and made sure to make use of it for the betterment of everyone involved. I think that one of the key differences between Doctor Doom and Batman is that whole inhibition there. Despite the fact that Batman has done a lot of crazy things physically to people, to the point where it's like, yeah, you didn't kill somebody, but
they
you've
might as
crippled
well
them
be
for
dead.
life. Yeah, you've crippled them for life. They're not ever walking again. Don't tell me otherwise. Sometimes some of those injuries might be worse than death, if you really ask me. But what if you went to Batman and said, okay, let's take away some of those inhibitions that you have, one, against killing, and two, when it comes to what you're willing to do to achieve success. I think that's what you would get with Doctor Doom. And honestly, there is actually a comic book line with Doctor Doom where basically there is one version of the universe where, you know what, they just let him cook. And he builds a little utopia. Everyone is at peace. And the bad thing about it is that Reed Richards got to go there. He saw what was going on there, and despite the fact that he's like, no, I can't argue against this. This is perfect. He still wanted to go and hate Doctor Doom anyway.
He's a hating ass nigga. That little
exactly
bitch boy. He's an elastic bitch boy, Devin.
So, and that's the thing.
Why
And
you
again,
hating? Because he doesn't have an elastic bussy. Calm down.
Yo!
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo!
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
You have an elastic bussy. He didn't have that.
What did he say? What did he say? But no. But I agree. And that's kind of... And the beautiful thing is, that is the story of the Fantastic Four between Marvel's first family and their core villain being Doctor Doom. Their story is about the advancement of society through whether it's technology or through like force, for the most part. Doctor Doom basically creates a utopia, but he essentially does it through force.
Yeah.
And the first family is like, oh, if we have the best science, if we're always exploring, reaching towards, humanity's best, it's not quite cyberpunk, but it's like, if we advance human society and lead the way, we create a better world. Where Doctor Doom's just like, nah, I'm gonna do it myself. Like, he's like, I'm gonna force y'all to do right. And that becomes the question of what is better.
Yeah. I mean, and that's where I can come from the confident standpoint of like I lean more so heavily to Marvel anyway, because I think that a lot of those ideas are a lot more complex and they get a little bit much more muddy, because it is a level of like, this person isn't the guy we want to have the utopia, goddammit. But
So
he did it. And then, go ahead.
No, I agree. Ironically, I've said this for years that the company's names don't match the characters they write. DC stands for Detective Comics. Excuse me. Yet most of their stories take it from a god level looking down. Wonder Woman, Batman. I mean, Batman's like the peak human. He might not be, superpower, whatever, but he's like, if I had glorious human power and all the money, I could do this.
And I
He's
was
a
white.
human marvel.
And I was white because, mind you, if Devin,
That was
if
a black
Devin,
man? Nah.
if Devin was out here with a fucking mask that went down to here and they saw nigga lips and hair, oh Devin, oh buck up, National Guard on your dumb ass.
They would have found you yesterday. No,
No, see, that's why I would do the Black Panther, like full mask. No, you don't see
yeah.
me.
But yeah, all jokes aside, though, DC stands for Detective Comics, but everything is godhood. You would think that company would be called Marvel,
Yeah,
just from the definition of the word Marvel. And yet Marvel, generally speaking, the X-Men are a whole nother bucket, so let's not go tit for tat here. But Marvel seems to make more of their stories look from humanity up. Does that make sense? Spider-Man, most of the time you're just trying to be an average Joe. Heck, this man is juggling women like most people try to. Like, Batman, Spider-Man is on a whole nother level. Like, most of his problems are with the women in his life, not the people he's fighting.
Jason, he's juggling women that niggas will kill for, and part-time jobs, and internships,
and being broke.
and yeah, being broke is important. But family Trump, bro, where is your dad and your mom? And it's not,
Dead.
yeah, like it's not, or like they, depending on who's writing, they either kill Uncle Ben or Aunt Mike. And then sometimes, if somebody wants to get really freaky, they kill
do both.
both of them. Bro, you killing these people, bro.
Yeah. No. Like,
Killing both of his people.
yeah. And again, like, Spider-Man is like peak superhero writing because, like, he's the guy who was constantly rising above trauma.
Yeah.
Like, this man goes most of his life missing both his parents. He gets adopted by his aunt and his uncle. Most of the time, his story starts with his uncle getting offed. So there's one down the way, and that puts him on his path. Generally speaking, partway through the story, there goes your aunt. And then you still got to be the best version of yourself while you're constantly doing this, while all the girls in your life are causing you issues one way or another. One of them gets sent to another dimension. One of them is a master thief that's constantly globetrotting, stealing shit. One of them turns into water goo. Like, one of them gets yeeted by the Green Goblin. Like, this man is constantly going through shit, and people constantly miss the point of what Spider-Man's supposed to be. Spider-Man is the guy that, through human ingenuity, confidence in oneself, and constantly realizing that I have a responsibility because I have this power that's been thrusted upon me. My goal is to do the best I can and to constantly do right. And somehow people constantly miss that's the point.
So there's a Spider-Man comic that came out relatively recently, where the whole premise is some villain won. And it got to the point where everyone in the world, the entire city, and so on and so forth, is basically disintegrating. The only thing that is holding everyone and everything apart together is his webs. He is quite literally, as we normally see in most of his stories where he's more subtly holding the community together, in that story he is quite literally holding the community and the world together. Every single day he has to go out and re-web people. Like, there's someone whose their jaws are right about to fall off. He has to go and re-web that back on. Yeah. But
that's the zombie one, and I saw that.
Yep.
I was like, damn, that's
Yeah.
that's heavy.
But even through all of that, he is still trying to be kind of that pillar while still trying to live some semblance of a normal life. It's really sad, honestly, the way they portray it. And honestly, damn whoever wrote that one, because come on, can we get one comic where it's like, look, for a year, let's just give it to him. Peter Parker, here's a vacation. Everything's going to go well. Just here's some money. Relax. Hey, you know what? Have a beach day with all the girls and everything. Cool.
Not giving this man a beach episode.
I'm not giving him a beach year. I'm gonna give him a whole.
Damn, Jason, he deserves it.
Yeah.
Family, bro. Every iteration. Boom.
Hold on. Yes, he deserves it. I was talking about the way Devin explained it. He made it sound like an anime. Like, all right, here's your Christmas episode. Here's your beach episode. Here's your Valentine's Day episode.
Here, your whole anime is just gonna be, hey, let's put all these holidays together in one string for a year.
Enjoy it.
Oh, man. If anybody deserves it, it's either between him, fucking Punisher. What's bro's name? What's bro's name that doesn't have a face in DC? The Question guy.
The Question, yeah.
Yeah, the Question. Yeah.
Like, it's a few people who deserve a fucking R&R, nigga. Damn. Like, it's
Give
just
something.
Yeah. But but again,
bullshit. Like,
but again, that tells me, like, when we're talking about these stories, characters, whatever, you understand the identity of the character, but you don't make it your identity. And that's what so many people, like, do these days. Like, oh, I'm a Captain America stan, but you fundamentally don't act the way Captain America would.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't let... half the people that like to do this Captain America stan, Superman stan, Homelander, these American iconographies. Well, Homelander's not the correct answer. It's more like Soldier Boy. But, they do these Americanized, characters. Y'all forget that these people stand for the people. Like, they would... If Superman was here today, he would be on the side of stopping ICE from rounding people up. He'd be the guy just, like, yeeting ICE into the corner so that these people could live their lives. Like, y'all are taking the wrong lesson here. And that's, again, what we're talking about. So, we've been talking about superheroes for the most part. Let's shift it. What are the characters, the stories we got?
Wait, before you leave.
Uh-oh.
What you said with Batman, when he met old girl on the swing set, that was very important. This is why I'm also like of Marvel more than DC, because Wolverine had that as well. There was that kid who had his mutant powers. He didn't really know he even had his mutant powers. And he was literally just killing people. Unconscious to him. Just killing people. Because he was like, boom, he felt like, oh, I got like a new surge or something. And he's thinking about the people around him. And they're dying. Immediately. And then, obviously, Professor Xavier gets the notification. And then he sends Wolverine out there because Wolverine obviously can withstand that. And he sits down with the kid. And this shit made me tear up. Because he sits down with the kid and he's like, hey, like, how you doing? You just got your powers, blah, blah, blah. And he sits down and shares a beer with the kid. And the whole time, like, go ahead.
Real quick, we do not condone giving underage kids alcohol in this situation. This is Wolverine here.
He does what he wants.
This is Wolverine. But here at the Just No BS podcast, we do not condone giving underage kids alcohol. Just real quick, gotta lawyer this up real quick.
This is Logan, not Aubrey. With that being said, things happen. Okay, boom. He sits down with the kid, and like he feels that coming off of the kid. You see what I'm saying? Him being somebody who's been around death, who's killed people for a bunch, and he feels that, and he's like, okay, cool. Gives him the drink. They sit down, talk about what's going on, talk about his powers briefly, talk about what's going on, and talk about what's coming next, and allows the kid to finish his drink before killing him. That right there is like, wow. That hurts. You see what I'm saying? Because it's a level of understanding of the X gene as to where this thing isn't always the best and most viable and most like genetically perfect thing. Like, it's not like people who went to fucking Stanford and are majoring in medical, they just now have X-ray vision and it just works out for what they're gonna do. Like, sometimes you have some weird cataclysmic shit going on with you and we don't know how to help you yet. So we just GG's in the chat. We got to get you up out of here for a little bit. And that hurt me because it was like the kid although he could plead his case, he could plead his humanity all he wanted, his existence was a detriment to everybody that he loved around him. And Logan had to come to grips with that's possibly what it's been for him. And that's like, wow, like that's in my brain, it's like, that's what I look at as a hero, if that makes sense. To where it's like, you have to kill parts of yourself that can't exist anymore in order to protect everyone around you. That is where it's like, ah, that shit strikes the core. You see what I'm saying? That's terrifying. It's sad, but it's like you have to do that. Or else who if you don't stand in the way of this, who else will? Because Xavier told him to go out there. What happens if he gets next to Xavier?
So I want to transition, but real quick, you saw Man of Steel, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you agree with the ending of Superman breaking Zod's neck?
Did I agree with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I felt like that was the only way that that was going to be able to work out. That nigga was not going to be rehabilitated whatsoever. Like that man was on a war path. Like there's a different like no, he's not going to stop until he gets what he gets. So it's like, did I agree for it for Superman though? Not necessarily. But I understood where he was coming from, even though it seemed like a very momentary lapse of judgment. He's like, it was like, oh, that's fucked. But I understood it though. I
So
can't lie to you.
to wrap it up, this is kind of my point to why, because you said it, that did you agree for it with Superman? And this is what I mean by understanding identity and then taking that for media literacy. We understand Superman's character that he will do whatever he can to preserve life. For that particular movie, I hate that response because while yes, they had that conversation and they go into this great CGI fight, whatever,
Mhm.
at that particular moment, there are several other things Superman could have potentially done prior to having to make the choice to kill him.
Yeah.
Because hell, he could have just dragged him up into the air again and dodged the laser, like and pulled the laser out. He could have stepped in front of it. He could have blocked it with his hands. There are so many other things that could have happened that it's almost a detriment to the character of what Superman actually does. Superman will do to the point of him nearly die. He'll do whatever he can to preserve life because that's because for his character, like for his personification of his character, life life is fundamentally sacred, and to take that life, you remove the potential for good. Just in general, that's his whole thing. Now, when we compare that to the situation with Wolverine, Wolverine is because he's almost demigod to the fact that he's lived for so long. You know, pretty much every Wolverine comic takes it from some point that this man's at least lived hundreds of years. He's fought in World War II, this, that, and the third. He's lived a long ass time, usually by the point the story taking on. So part of his thing is that he's seen so much trauma, and even after Xavier helps him deal with majority of that trauma, he's the guy that, because I can self-generate, I'm going to continue taking on that trauma, which is such an apt, um,
State.
almost said harmonization, but it's a dang, what's the word I'm looking for? But it's apt that his power is self-generation because even when it comes to mental trauma, he's willing to take that on because he realizes that he can heal from it and just do it again. Like it's harmony, it's harmonious. His power is harmonious with the person that he is.
Yeah, it's one of those it's one of those great comedies as to where it's like, since you understand suffering, suffering will be your purpose. And that's fucked. Like when you think about it, it's like, Jesus, you know how to withstand. And then even from like a psychological standpoint, because of the things that Xavier had to do to his mental to like prepare him to be an elder for the X-Men and things like that. Like like it's that's what I'm saying, like a divine comedy, like almost like, okay, since you're you're apropos to be here because Jean Grey couldn't do it. We saw that. We've all seen that. We've seen other psychics and people who can communicate, telepaths, and everybody else try and do that, but there's a split that happens with them. He's a war machine. And it's like, damn, that's fucked. Because at the end of the day, the Xavier Institute is the facilitation of child soldiers. It is. It is. Like,
Hmm.
I get it. We love it. We love Xavier. We love Professor Xavier. We love the guy who also played Magneto. I get it. We love them. Hold them as patron saints and acting. But in all actuality, it's like, oh no, no, no. This shit is devious as fuck. Because at the end of the day, you have Storm, who's like a goddess. That we will not pollute our goddesses with self-sacrifice. Okay, we're not gonna pollute our telepaths and our telekinetics with these types of things. Okay, boom, hey, Gambit, you're a little bit too strong. We're gonna put mental inhabitors on you. Bobby, Iceman, you're an Omega 11. We're gonna put that shit on you too. Jean Grey, we're gonna do that shit to you. Hey, this war dog who's from Europe who had bone claws. He has PTSD. Yep, yep. They put metal in his
To
body.
be fair, Wolverine's Canadian, not European.
I'm sorry. You're right. He is Canadian.
Hmm.
Shout out to the Canadians. Shout out Keanu Reeves, Celine Dion, all y'all. We love the Canadians. Fuck Drake. But but they're sending this man into essentially doing soft skills. Like he's a security bouncer for the university, and they send him in for an HR job. He has to talk somebody into being okay with suicide. Like I'm sorry, that's crazy. And then you expect him to just come back and be like just normal Wolverine, like, oh yeah, man, I like cigars, I like beer, I like Canada and snow. This nigga is suffering. He has to kill a kid after giving him alcohol. Alas,
So
alas.
yeah, moving on from superheroes. Hey Devin, you got any other characters or stories you want to discuss in this topic here?
Well, I have one point that I want to use to segue into that. So there was a video that we all got to go and see where someone brought up a really good term, which is virtue mirroring. So it's the idea that, from what it says here, the idea that a person can't enjoy media or characters in media that don't align with their personal values. And the same thing would apply for the opposite. You know, they do enjoy media and characters specifically that do align with their personal values. So I feel that in order to say that you have a good understanding of media literacy, you should be able to enjoy characters that don't necessarily represent your own personal values. Um, I like to go and use. Uh, let's go back to Doctor Doom there. Hey, I'm not a representative of tyranny. Let's. I mean, despite the fact that I joke and say like, hey, one day I'd like to take over the world. I'd be an emperor, but I'd be a kind emperor. With a velvet iron fist. Yes. But I don't agree with everything that he stands for. But taking it into like other TV shows, like for example, The Office, which everyone knows that as like a sitcom
Ha ha ha.
that really goes into some extreme characters and so on and so forth. You never really hear anyone say, "Oh, hey, the main one of the main characters, Michael, is me." The manager there at the office. No one ever says, "Hey, that's me," to a T. Like
No one
everyone seems,
should.
and no one really should, except there is a lesson to be learned from him in the sense that in one of the episodes they show that prior to him moving into the position that you see him in throughout most of the series, he was a top tier salesman. And it wasn't because, oh, hey, he was cheating people. Oh,
Uh oh.
My bad. I
mm.
remember the picture, Devin. I remember the picture.
Oh,
We
yeah,
had
yeah, yeah, yeah. You
he,
already had the long, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't that, oh, hey, he was cheating people out of things. He had a good understanding of what people wanted and what people needed. That is a lesson, one of the lessons that people should take out of him. And the second should be that sometimes you are put into positions in life as well as in work where you are not a good fit. You should ideally try to find that place where you fit the best. In Michael's case, it was still being a salesman. People thought that they could put him into management to teach everyone else how to be a great salesman, but we saw how throughout most of the series how he failed to do that at almost every level until the end when everyone else kind of learned from his mistakes there. They ended up getting better at different aspects of their life because of seeing him fail at many aspects of his life. Um, so again, he is not a character that most people would go and say, "Oh, hey, I identify with this character, and he fits the ideals that I personally believe in." But you should still be able to enjoy him as a character and still learn from him. And that goes into some other characters too. If we go into the show Better Call Saul, just about every single character there, you should not say, "Oh, hey, I'm that character right there. That's me. That represents my personal beliefs." Just about every character in that series is a victim, but you
Or
should be learning.
absolutely fucking terrible.
Yes. You should be learning and using that as a what not to do, as well as seeing some of the good aspects of them and saying, okay, well, I can enjoy this person as a character. I enjoy, Saul Goodman as a character. You know,
He's a sly lawyer.
yes, you know,
He's so
he is extremely creative. It's just all his creative energy is pointed in all the wrong directions. Um, but I can still enjoy him. Aizen from the anime Bleach. He's an absolute villain that just looks down on everyone.
To our audio listeners, Callus from Endev the Bird.
But if you look at it from some of the earlier looks of him, he is someone who was extremely gifted and was always seen as someone who was extremely skilled and never really treated at the same level as everyone else. And because of that, he developed into that person that just looked down on everyone. He never had the opportunity to grow from that as well. And honestly, he is an example of how we should treat people who, might be gifted in some way, shape, or form to make sure that they still retain some level of humanity, whereas he did not retain that, and we saw how that went down. A lot of the
So,
characters in Kokiyasu, same exact thing. My whole point is that they might not necessarily be good examples of what you should be, and you shouldn't necessarily treat them as your ideal and how you connect with them, but you should still learn lessons from them. They still have a use.
so for me, what I would add on to that, and I'll use some examples as well that I just thought of, but I'll say one thing I think media, not even people watching media, but one thing I think media is doing an inconsistent job of is showing that these characters' faults are problematic. So to use an example, we all watched the same video about the reference, but when we're talking about How I Met Your Mother with Barney Stinson, at no point in the show do they show that his behavior is problematic. It's all played for laughs. So expecting people initially to think it's all good behavior is easy. And people are willing to actually use that behavior in real life and become identify with said behavior. When no, that man is essentially a predator and it's all problematic. So, like, again, great character, well designed, he's hilarious. But if you were to take that and justify and put that man in real life, he would essentially be the worst gigolo slash predator ever. He'd just be a terrible ass person who
Now,
could make people laugh.
funny enough, in that same video, while I agree with that point, that yes, if you look at all of his actions, yeah, absolutely terrible. But there is a point in that series where they get down to why he does all of that. And they actually go and show it as a, oh, hey, it's a coping mechanism for him more so than anything else. Most people miss that point and just think that, oh, hey, it's just, you know, a thing that he does and everything. It's a good thing. But no, it's actually because he's not dealing with life well at all.
Yeah. No. I So we're referencing a video done by Olay. She's a great YouTuber. She does a lot of video essays, and she was talking about how we as a society identify with the media that we talk. So similar to the conversation we're having now. And one thing that she missed, or I believe she missed, and I would love to one day have more conversation on, is the fact that some of these shows do show it, but a lot of people want it to be like direct. Like, and what I want people to understand is that a person's character is a whole storyline. It's not just one thing that you should be, immediately punished for. You might get through a series of, terrible behavior, and then you're hit later in life with the consequences of that terrible behavior. You might get away with it soon, early on, but that behavior comes back. Like nothing is sandboxed in its own like direct one to one. Life doesn't work that way. It can. There might be moments where you get you steal something and then you get immediately get caught, or you could be part of a criminal enterprise, get away with it for 20 years, and then get hit with a RICO charge. Like life is not a one to one. So when we're talking about the media that we consume, we have to remember that throughout the whole run of a show, book, whatever, you have to look at it in its entirety. And I feel like too many people forget that. My example is Big Bang Theory. I fundamentally dislike that show because when that show dropped and its whole run, I thought it did a disservice to nerd culture through and through because it created stereotypes. It took stereotypical stereotypes of nerd culture, magnified it times 10, and made it a joke. Like you took the genius autism kid, which is a terrible trope that too much media uses. Autism is a spectrum, and you never
Mm.
really, for a good part of the show's run, I hated the way they just represent autism because I knew a lot of autistic people growing up, and that, you know, to be fair, Sheldon, he has autistic tendencies, but I don't recall if they actually diagnosed him with autism. So I'm going to take part of that back, but it's very coded in autism. And then they jump that to another level and make him this super genius kid that has a terrible personality and just rips on everybody. You took the stereotypical Indian kid that can't get girls. You took you took the nerdy Jewish kid that basically has family issues. Like you took these stereotypes of nerd culture, magnified them, and for a long part of that run, I just thought that was terrible. I could not get down with the show because I just thought it took nerd culture and made it it fundamentally took him into a joke. But what I will have to give it credit for is that as the seasons went on, they turned more of these characters into characters. Like a lot of them did grow up. Sheldon learns how to have proper relationships, even though he's still mostly a dick until pretty much the last season. Like most of that show, I just can't stand. I can't stand with it. Even now, like my wife loves that show. I can't sit and watch more than a couple episodes because it just in my soul irritates me. But it's because I identify with being nerd or nerd coded that's like I can't stand this. To which I realize that because I can't stand the way they depict nerd or nerd culture, it affects the way I view the show. But unlike most people, I'm realize I am willing to accept the bias that I have towards that. And I think more and more people need to realize that in general when it comes to analyzing the media that they watch. I can't ever say that I'm ever going to enjoy Big Bang Theory, but I understand why people do. I'm not going to. I'm never going to be able to fully enjoy that show, but I will at least give people the props that, you know what? This isn't the initial stereotypical show that I thought it was when I first, saw it on TV or whatever. I'm never going to sit down and watch all of it, but I'm not going to keep bashing people for enjoying it, because I understand at this more mature level that I'm at now. But I'm still willing to analyze it from its own merit, if that makes sense. And that's the separation people don't tend to have. Yes, I identify with being a member of nerd culture, so there's lots of aspects of Big Bang Theory I find problematic. But as someone who's just middle America watching this, not fully understanding the microaggressions or whatever, I'm not going to just sit here and hammer away why this show is terrible. Many of the characters, if they existed in real life, would be utterly ridiculous, and for the time period, it wouldn't happen. In this day and age, that's completely different. We're more evolved now, but I can't, like, to this day, I still can't watch that show, but I understand why I can't. And that should be something more and more people break down when they're analyzing why you like something, why you don't like something, why you vibe with a show, etc. Hell, if we were all morally uplifted as people like to act like they are, nobody would watch Dexter.
Thoughts there?
Well, before he jumps to his thought, the reason is people like to act like they're high and mighty, and we shouldn't be. It's not just killing. We shouldn't just be completing blatant murder, this, that, and the third. But this is again a story about a fundamentally, because he's white, he's fundamentally privileged, but he's getting away with stuff that would Dexter exist as a black person? That's all I would ever ask people.
I will say this. Said it the other night. Save here. Thank you, Devin, for playing the runway for me. Black people are historically higher performers across the board, especially when we look at America. Some of the most prolific serial killers here in America. You get the documentaries about the white people. There are black people here who are active, very successful serial killers. I am not supporting serial killers, Devin. I'm talking about efficacy.
Okay.
How effective are at what you're doing. That becomes a very dangerous conversation. Because although I'd be like, I support black people, I love black people, it's some very highly fucking successful black serial killers here among us. Some of them are gone. Yep, don't get me wrong. Do not let us forget there is a genre of hip hop music called drill music. These niggas was killing niggas actively and making records and making a career off of this. I'm sorry. Did we just forget the fact that California just had their largest RICO ever when they were locking up some of the Crip niggas who were over there murdering niggas? They were murdering niggas and making hit records and doing podcast interviews for years.
Yeah. So again, in the terms of this discussion, break it down. How do we take the story of what's happening and separate it from the identity of the reality? And because that's the point of this discussion we're having.
So, what I see when I see certain things like this, my heart actually goes out to the people who are victims of this, period, point blank. Because more times than not, a lot of the people who are being murdered by these people, I say it for jokes and shit like that, like, but in all actual reality, like, these are people with children and cousins, nieces, nephews, aunties,
Family, loved ones, yep.
mothers, father. These are regular just people dying. Mind you, I'm saying this, it's a joke. We're talking about how effective black people are when it comes to being serial killers. It's a joke. Yes, black people are much more successful when it comes to it because the state doesn't care about us dying, especially if we're killing each other. You see what I'm saying? So you do have a higher level of success rate because they feel like that serial killer is doing their job better than they can, which is terrifying in and of itself. That's where the joke is. I don't like that shit because I understand where I'm coming from a media literacy standpoint. For instance, that also ties into this. I don't mind listening to niggas rap about selling drugs and shit like that. You see what I'm saying? Like even the whole situation that I brought up with Pusha T and talking shit to Travis Scott and everything else like that. I fuck with what Pusha T did to Travis Scott because he raps better than him. He's an actual better creative and artist than him. You see what I'm saying? Pusha T, however, heavily hangs his hat on drug dealing. Whoop de whoop. Do I fuck with that shit personally, heavily? No, because I've seen parts of my family be on both sides of that. You see what I'm saying? We won't go into too much detail, but that I've seen people actually extend their life because of the dependency that they have on certain things. You see what I'm saying? From like a consuming standpoint, and then I've seen people actually get fucked up out of career jobs because they didn't just fit the profile, and that's how they figured out how to provide for their family. So it's a mixed bag, but I am never in a position as to where it's like, oh, this shit is fully okay. It's a weird line of demarcation of you had to do what you had to do, and you also had to do what you had to do. So you had to sell this to get somewhere, and you had to buy this to cope to also get somewhere or bottom out somewhere. It's fucked. It's a bag of fucking monkeys you got to deal with, reality wise, here. And I love certain things that I love, but I'm also looking at it from an objective and an empathetic standpoint. It's like, fuck, like, do I want these people who sold some of my family members shit in prison? Nah, not necessarily. But do I want the part of my family members who bought this shit to figure out what they were doing with the rest of their life dead? No. I like no as well. So it's a weird like I don't understand how to explain it beyond that as to where it's like it's a symbiotic relationship as to where it's like what's good for the goose is good for the gander in certain places. And then also what hurts the goose hurts the gander as well, because if you have people who die, they can't buy drugs. So you can't, you see what I'm saying, get a leg up and da 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 da. And these people, if they don't get access to this, because more times than not, these people are buying drugs from like pharmacists because they can't get access to the drugs that they actually need from real pharmacists. And it's a that, that for me. I have,
So, oh, I have a quick question for you,
hmm.
just to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. So, with everything that you're saying there, are you saying that in regards to the main character from Dexter, or are you talking more about the people who consume the show there? And what John was saying, which is, hey, no one should like the show and everything. Are you saying that that shouldn't apply to everyone, or are you saying that the thought process of the main character shouldn't apply to everyone, or we should be sympathetic to, the
No,
characters like that?
we should be empathetic to the main character to an extent,
Okay.
in my opinion, because that was the designed intent of the writer of the series. You're not supposed to be fully like, oh, I fuck with Dexter, kill Deb and all her people. Like that's not what the writing was supposed to be. At a certain point, even by the writer's own admission, it was a level of scaling back as to where it's like, yeah, he does have an issue. He has trained and gotten to a certain point, but at certain points, he steps over that line as to where now you're supposed to critique him and be like, hey, you're fucking moving a little bit crazy. A strong point of contention where that happened in the series was the murder of Stokes, if you remember that when he put him in the cage and after the meme, the surprise motherfucker like that. Like once it starts to get there and he starts to like move actively, he starts to get a little bit more brazen with his line of what his dad taught him. It's kind of like you're kind of tripping a little bit. But like there is a situation as to where I can empathize and sympathize with people from like from a music standpoint, like the individuals who grew up listening to drug dealer music, and some of these people are addicted to drugs now and they're now making their own version of it, but then also listening to the guys who were the drug sellers and everything else like that, and they're like, hey, I'm trying to survive. And then one of the lines that I actually loved by Jay-Z to where it was like essentially like the irony of selling drugs is kind of like you're using it. I guess it's two sides to what uh, drug abuse is. I guess it's two sides to what substance abuse is. And being able to look at that and look at people on one side and be like, damn, that's fucked up. You probably shouldn't be doing that to people. And then on the other side, be like, that's fucked up. You probably shouldn't be buying into that. But understanding that this is a symbiotic relationship, and that's how America moves. Because you oftentimes have people who are a part of like CVS or like larger pharma who are coming out pushing drugs on people, and then other people come in and buy into it, and then the people who sold them the drugs are like, hey, these are the terms and conditions, these are the side effects. If you have these side effects, buy this other drug. And it's like, that's damn, that's tough. Because we do celebrate wealth, we do celebrate people being successful. Um, and I do think that that's a weird relationship. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. That's a very weird relationship to have. On one side, being empathetic to the individuals who are victims, and then supporting the individuals trying to get out of that said poverty. Um, that's
Like,
just
no, I get what you're saying overall, but that, I guess the thought process to me would apply more to a show like The Wire than it would to apply to something like Dexter.
oh,
My issue,
absolutely.
my issue with Dexter is the same issue I have with a show like You, the one on Netflix with that one guy Joe. That
The
for
white guy.
some reason, even though he's the main character, no one like I don't understand the thought process because he's essentially a deplorable character, but he's essentially beloved by the shore the viewers to the point where even the both the writers and the guy who plays him was like, why do y'all like this guy?
Do you
Like
think like
it
do you think that okay, so you said Joe, can I run a litmus test? Do you think Killmonger is like that?
No, but to be fair, or to provide more context as a comparison, we're given more of Killmonger's overall childhood backstory than we are from Joe from You, even though that show has 5 seasons. So the context isn't one to one, but that's the when we're talking about it from a storytelling perspective, that's the point. We're like it's the Breaking Bad effect. We're giving it well, not Breaking Bad because we get to see his growth into being more of a villain, but it's like when we look at a secondary main character like but they're more of the dark side. So like a Killua from like Hunter x Hunter or like a Shishomaru from Inuyasha or someone who takes more of the anti route, so to speak. But they're more of the main character. Like when we're talking about like someone like Dexter or Joe from You, these are characters that fundamentally, in the long run, yes, we're given more of why they do what they do, but fundamentally, we should not enjoy what they do. They should be an indictment of their actions. And a lot of times when media tries to create these characters, I find it more and more more recently they've gotten a little better, but like Killmonger, but or Thanos, they don't land the fact what these characters are doing is fundamentally wrong, even if they are great characters. So that's the part that people, and that's true media literacy, accepting that these characters are fantastically made characters, but in reality, if we were to see that, we should fundamentally understand it's wrong. It's the Star Wars effect. We can understand that the resistance is good in Star Wars, but if we were to see it in real life, we would take the side of the Empire. That's what we're seeing in this day and age when it comes to media literacy.
Shout out to George Lucas himself because of that interview that happened to where he was essentially basing the resistance off of the Viet Cong. And then when he was getting ready to sell the property over, he was like, "Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, the Viet Cong, da da da," and then he alluded to the rebels are the Middle East as well. And then the reporter kind of got skittish a little bit, and it was like, "Well, no, like that's what that is." Like, I think, bro, I can't. I really do appreciate this conversation. This is dope because it's not even it's not blasted to the forefront whatsoever. We're supposed to accept exactly who our heroes are supposed to be, and that's not exactly who everybody is for real, for real. And it's I don't know.
I
I find it beautiful.
I think to kind of add to a little bit of what you were saying there, Cal, as well as what you were saying there, John, is that we should be able to recognize that individual characters, what they're doing is either right or wrong based off of our personal standards, our personal morals, so on and so forth. If there is something that is inherently wrong, we should recognize that. But that shouldn't necessarily stop us from enjoying that media because of what it's representing.
That's it right there.
Hmm.
That's fundamentally it. And as we start to put a bow on this conversation,
Oh, can I say this before you wrap it up, Jason? Because you're gonna wrap it up well. Platinum End is a great anime.
I know
I
what you're talking
wish
about. Yep.
I wish more people will watch it
That's the one with
because
the angels, right?
yes, that's
Yep.
when God is essentially tired of being God and he's trying to figure out how to elect new people to be God. It is a very morally ambiguous type of thing that's happening. And I can't lie. I just want people to watch this. I want more people to watch this.
It
But
was a
just at
good
least
manga.
see, like, yeah, manga as well. But just this level of like, there's a different level of responsibility as to where sometimes you have to accept being misunderstood to do what you have to do for the greater good. And who's to say that what your view of the greater good is the absolute good of anything?
Hmm.
I just moral dilemma questions for the world that we're living in right now. We're not living in a black and white world. Bullshit is happening every day, and you're supposed to be a good person in spite of that. So that's just look. That's it though.
Yeah.
I like to go and say, choose what level of gray you want to on live.
Touche. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So to kind of start winding down the conversation a little bit, I'm gonna transition us here using a quote by Joseph Campbell as we kind of wrap this conversation talking about the hero's journey. The hero's journey. It is a universal story, so central to our identity, it is as if it is written in our DNA. That was Joseph Campbell in the book A Hero with a Thousand Faces. So, to kind of wrap things up, when we think about separating the idea of personal identity with this concept of, um, you know, this actual concept of media literacy, we have to get to the point where, or get back to a point where we identify with our characters, but not to the point where we forget that their story is supposed to show them in a positive or negative light. So, for example, if we were to use, I brought it up before, I meant to bring it up now, but when we look at Star Wars, when you look at the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, we fundamentally should have realized that the Jedi were wrong. That's kind of the fundamental point. Luke himself says it multiple times. While media literacy is realizing that in some of the newer properties that Disney's created, they're forgetting said point. It's the light and dark side of the force are not necessarily about right and wrong. It's about creating a balance between the two. And this is why I will say the one of the best lines Luke does have in the sequel trilogy in Episode 8 was that the bigger the light, the greater the dark. It's just a matter of what is the lesson that these properties, or what's the story they're trying to get to us. How do we identify that properly, or identify with that properly? So again, Star Wars is like one of the quintessential hero journeys properties we have in this day and age. Almost anything by Marvel. Um, Pick a book series, Harry Potter, Hero's Journey. So I want to get your final thoughts on should we still be using the hero's journey skeleton to create stories that represent this day and age? While y'all thinking about that, I'm gonna go back to my Star Wars point real quick while you guys take a moment to think about it. Personally, I think it's a yes and a no. It's a matter of showing the end result properly. I think that to me is the most important thing that a lot of these books, media, anime, Jesus, anime just this day and age is all just almost brain rot fighting stuff, but like I think that's the key thing is how do we identify with the media that we engage with without attaching ourselves to it morally to the point where we can't separate what their author is actually trying to get across with what the story actually is. My biggest example of people messing this up is freaking Attack on Titan. Uh, Go ahead, Devin. I think you have a thought there.
No, I'm just looking up something really quick. Because if it's what I want to say, then I just want to be sure that I'm correct. Because there's
Fact check,
another
fact
term.
check.
Yep, fact checking myself before I say something. Da, 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 da.
We are the champions, my friend.
But Caleb, if you want to go first and everything, then
Um. Okay. So my thing where you were talking about where Luke reflected on the Jedi Order. I hear that, but there is also the situation that um, Anakin had, where Anakin was kind of going through it, where he was essentially talking about, oh, to my perspective, the Jedi are evil, blah, blah, blah. When it comes to developing the properties and everything else like that. And seeing his mentor, his older brother, essentially come from the standpoint of only a Sith deals in absolutes. I will never let that go. What did he just say?
In absolute.
absolute.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Which
In my
it's a two-pronged idiotic statement because one, that statement in and of itself is an absolute. And and two, that was the Jedi dogma was an absolute. Who says that having caring about people is a path to the dark side? The
and what
fundamental problem is that Luke in the original trilogy essentially proves Yoda and Obi-Wan wrong
yeah.
by caring for his dad and refusing to fight the Emperor out of any kind of
And his
negative
sister.
emotion.
He cared about
He essentially redeems his dad and defeats the Sith. Like by doing the opposite of what they said is how he wins.
yeah, like he did the thing and he won the thing that Aang wish he could have done. Because when Aang was going through his training, you remember that? When his
Avatar.
yeah, his
Mhm.
mentor was essentially like, you have to let go of old girl and finish his training. And he was like, nah. Both of them were like, nah. And then one of them, mind you, one of them got fucking cooked. The other one was able to actually succeed in his trials and things like that. Um, this is wildly damaging to the psychology of people when it comes to media literacy because of that. Because it being like, just because one thing worked over here doesn't mean it works for you. And just because certain things fail for certain people doesn't mean that it fails for you all the time or you're going to fully succeed whatsoever. The main thing that I took away from Star Wars when it came to the prequels is he was trying to hold on to what he wanted to hold on to so much he choked life out of it. That may not mean shit to y'all. I'm a Star Wars nigga. I'm sorry. He was fighting for his life to hold on to what he viewed home as, which was, someone who resembled his mom. She met his mom. She had his kids. Blah blah blah. He choked the life out of her. You see what I'm saying?
Nah, man, she died from lack of love.
That's see.
Sorry, I had to hit that joke because it never stops being hilarious. But continue.
But like holding on to it, and mind you, he fought old boy, everything else like that. But that was the main thing that I took away from it, as to where it was like he did that. He did that when it came to, because he did have to go through that with the Tusken Raiders in episode 2 when he went back and tried to save his mom. His mom was essentially gone at that point, and he murdered everybody. He did a little small genocide with a
Little
large
small.
little micro side. You see what I'm saying? A little minicide. We can't even call it a genocide. A little
I
minicide.
can't.
But no, and then afterwards, seeing that, and there was a level of just like he wanted to preserve what he couldn't have any, because he already had stepped over to the dark side. He had already killed Mace Windu, allegedly. At that point, chopped his arm off, threw him out the window. Whoop de whoop. And Obi-Wan is there, and Obi-Wan was standing there as a level of authority. And me going back and watching that was like, wow, that's tough to deal with. Knowing that this is the last time that we see Anakin. Darth Vader is after this. Like literally 6 hours later. That's Darth Vader. That's not. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I would argue that Anakin was forced to that point through all the pressure that was being put on him to choking out the thing that he loved and wanted to hold closest to him.
But did
Um,
he make? He was coerced, but didn't he make certain decisions actively that he probably wasn't supposed to make?
I would say that because of the influences that he had, he was forced into those. Like using that example that you said with Mace Windu, he didn't actually go and kill him. He did cut his hand off because he was trying to de-escalate the situation from the side that he was seeing it from, which from the Jedi point of view, he was looking at it in the sense of like, oh, hey, you're going against our normal rules and so on and so forth. We're supposed to have like a trial and do like the normal process, which of course wouldn't have worked against Palpatine, which
But
Mace Windu understood.
Palpatine showed the light. He already showed the dark side of it, because correct me if I'm wrong, Dooku was the first person to show lightning to him. To him.
Anakin, yeah.
Mhm.
So you saw this is a Sith.
So
But
if
and
we
I
follow if
oh,
we
go ahead.
follow Star Wars lore,
I
if we follow Star Wars lore, technically it's just the power of the dark side. Sith and Jedi are not technically the paragons of light versus dark, which is also another sub theme throughout the whole work. But the whole point of that is that we see, because technically speaking, if you really think about it, Dooku is never a Sith,
No, he wasn't. He
but Palpatine definitely is. So my whole thing is that it's not that Anakin was, I guess coerced is the best word. It's more like he was tricked into a series of situations, which had he at any point took a moment of
reprieve and
reprieve, clarity, or given a moment to peel back, it might not have happened that way. But like Devin's about to say, Anakin is, the whole point is, with the exception of the Tusken Raiders, Anakin is never really wrong.
outside of the exception,
because he blatantly goes for revenge against the Tusken Raiders. That's straight up
Yeah.
revenge.
Right.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Okay.
But like Devin said, when he cut off Mace Windu's hand, he was correct. If he's in their world, he's the only one at that moment trying to follow the Jedi code, because their code says they're only supposed to kill in defense of someone else. Windu had Palpatine beat. At that point, like Devin was saying, they were supposed to take him in and force him to trial. It probably wouldn't have worked because Palpatine had everyone under his control. But that's technically the right, I'm using air quotes for anyone who's listening to this audioly, right thing to do. But Mace Windu knows that because of Sith lore and their constant fight with the Jedi, that Palpatine is not essentially going to give up. He's not going to stop being evil. So he's trying to defeat evil with evil. And also, if you know anything about Mace Windu, he functionally also uses the dark side as part of his technique.
Yeah, he has to. Yeah, he's balanced
through Vapad and all that.
Yeah,
that's Star Wars lore. But it's a matter of the Jedi in the situation, the Jedi Master in the situation of Mace Windu is essentially wrong, trying to defeat evil with evil. Anakin, it's a technicality. It's not. I'm not comparing this to our. I'm not comparing this to our world. I'm comparing it to the situation they're set up in. Mace Windu is trying to defeat evil with evil. Anakin is quote unquote still trying to do the right thing, and because neither of those things happen, and Mace Windu makes a move to kill Palpatine, Anakin is almost justified in stopping Mace Windu.
And then Palpatine makes use of that situation.
Yeah, and Palpatine makes use of that situation to trick Anakin in believing that his side is correct. I'm using air quotes again.
Okay, so Devin, I'm sorry. I love y'all that cook food. Thank you. I get to have these nerd conversations here. Okay, cool. With that being said, when I talked about previously, where we talked about Superman, where it came down to his power exceeding his wisdom, do you see how this is here like that? Like the wisdom isn't even taken into consideration fully as to where it's like, okay, the man that is literally trained by one of the best lightsaber users and force users of all time is like, we need to kill this nigga actively right now. This nigga is dangerous. He has hid himself from not only us, but from the Senate actively. This nigga's dangerous. Like that wisdom thing taking over. And like,
so
go ahead.
Let me juxtaposition to real life scenarios. Should we, as a society in this world, be able to take away someone's life without due process?
No.
Because that's essentially what Mace Windu was attempting to do.
Absolutely.
Which is the point of that whole scene. Anakin essentially says this man needs to stand trial. The killing or the killing is not the problem. They could have, and that's the issues of the dogma of both sides. In that situation, the Jedi dogma, the proper dogma was this man needs to stand trial. Now, if he had stood trial in the Senate and then they said off with his head for all this stuff, and then the Jedi was like, okay, I'm using air quotes again, heavy air quotes, justifiable by what the story sets up at that moment. Because on episode 2 in Geonosis, how many of them droids and people they killed? Mace Windu offed Boba Fett.
And he did it worse than what they let us see.
It's fundamentally, it's not the killing that's the issue. It's the fact that in that moment, they're not following their own code, which gives Palpatine the opening to one, kill Mace Windu, but also essentially flip Anakin's allegiance overall because one, he has quote unquote, even though he's essentially lying, the power to give Anakin what he wants in saving Padme, but two, he's also showing that the power that he's seeking isn't wrong as he's been taught by the Jedi. And that's the trick.
Can we ask Devin? Can we ask Devin, please? Devin, what do you think about this?
So, funny enough, this kind of leads me into still staying with the prequels into Qui-Gon Jinn. I think that he
That's my
would have
favorite character
been
in the prequels.
a perfect teacher because he actually understood the use of emotion and connection and so on and so forth without necessarily letting it get to an extreme, which would have one grounded Anakin, when he was going through all those troubling times as a child, which is one of the reasons why I don't think he developed well as an adult, which led into a lot of the issues that took place because all the other Jedi tend not to basically think about that side of things, so they weren't able to address it properly. But if, let's say, it was Qui Gon Jinn instead of Mace Windu in that situation, one, he wouldn't have forced it into a situation where they say, okay, let's kill him right now. He would have still acknowledged that, yes, we should go ahead and bring him to trial. However, here's an explanation as to why this is not probably going to work. Here is what we may have to do. We might have to get into, and this is funny because this kind of ties into another faction in Star Wars lore, into a gray area or becoming like a gray Jedi or so on and so forth. I think that if Anakin had him as a teacher, then he would have learned that balance there. I think the Jedi failed him, when it comes to their teachings. I think that other people manipulated his decisions where he only felt that those were some of his choices based off of what he had been learned, what he had learned and taught, which goes into the whole wisdom thing that you were bringing up earlier, because he never got a chance to build that wisdom to make that proper discernment. Um,
Still got he's still got.
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
both in a
Yeah.
literal and figurative sense.
Yeah, yeah, the lava.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He got cooked in every way you could talk about there, but
Yeah.
but yes, I think that's where that kind of comes down to, and that's what the point that I was trying to make. That well, yes, he is responsible for the actions that he took, as everyone is when it comes to their decisions. We also have to look at what pushed him to those decisions.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And this is to truly wrap things up. This is why we need to be able to examine, break down, discuss media in a full context, because these are the conversations that more and more people need to have. And this is a simple one because a lot of people have talked Star Wars to death at this point, especially the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, even the sequel trilogy. We talk Star Wars, but this same level of analysis needs to apply across the board when you're talking about almost anything you read or watch or whatever. So for me, at the end of the day, we have to take stories within their own internal context, but break them down using our real world experience and understand the difference between the two. So, with that being said, any final thoughts you want to get off your chest? Because we've been going for a minute. It's been a lovely conversation. Any final
Uh,
thoughts?
I do have one quick thing, because you did mention the hero's journey, which a lot of stories do happen to follow that entire pathway. But there are also other versions that a lot of stories make use of, like the fool's journey, the
Yep.
villain's journey, specifically if we want to use like Thanos in the MCU. Since the villain's journey is supposed to explore the development of a villainous character, delves into the reasons behind their descent into villainy, and then how their actions shape the arc throughout the story, culminating into their downfall or transformation. For one version of Thanos in the movies, he went through that entire journey there, and he completed the journey by completing the snap, doing everything that he was set out to do. When they brought him again, as a different version of him, he technically went through a portion of the villain's journey, only it brought about his downfall. But we see that in stories, even if it's not as obvious as, oh, hey, here's the hero, here's the villain, or here's the
Old
protagonist, here's the
Sage.
antagonist. Yeah, it might not be as obvious, but many stories still go and use that same arc, whether or not it's hitting specific points. So it's not so much of a should we go back to it. It's more of a let's just make sure that we're using it in different ways and using the arc format as it's intended, which is more of like a skeleton as opposed to, hey, this is dictating what the story should talk
It's
about.
hit all the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, my final thoughts for this conversation is that, again, we have to have some discernment as people, and we need more proper English teachers to help people from a young age rebuild that discernment. For me, it was this crazy white dude that made me realize that Romeo and Juliet took the time span of 3 days. That really made me think. I'm like, wait a minute. I need to start thinking about some of the stuff I read more than just, oh, this is cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can like something because it's cool. Something, a la solo leveling, whatever. Sometimes it's okay just to turn your brain off and enjoy what you're watching. But you should have the understanding of when you're doing that versus when I should dig into something deeper, like, the hit horror movie of the year, Sinners. Like, and I think we as a society need to have more basis for having those conversations. Final thoughts, Cal?
I saw a video earlier today to where there was something that was released by the White House specifically, and it was the president walking into NATO and all the other places with Daddy's Home by Usher playing. And I thought that this wasn't real. No, I swear to God. I swear to God. I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, this isn't real. No, it's directly from the White House. Daddy's home, home for me. I can feel waiting for this moment all day. And I see a white caption, Daddy's home. And I see this nigga walking up and walking out. And in my brain,
Oh.
you niggas gay. Nothing against gay niggas. Shout out to my gay niggas. Real gay niggas. But it's this weird penis envy thing that's happening. And I'm sorry.
We were having this great conversation, wrapping up on literacy, and then somehow we transitioned to Donald Trump walking down the aisle to Daddy's home. I'm so confused.
Yo, that is funny to me on so many different levels.
I'm gonna be honest, Dre, so I'm sorry. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be transparent. This is some of the gayest shit I've ever seen in my life from non-gay niggas. That's the funny part. These niggas ain't even gay. They just calling niggas daddy. Okay. That's weird. Shout out to the gay niggas. Respectfully. Y'all don't do
That's
this.
some literacy for you, man.
But again, I'm a chill. Love y'all so much. Please read everything that we reference for y'all. The MCU, the DCU, Dark Horse. Please look at the movies as well. All of this. It's beautiful understanding of people in their own lifestyles for and getting it off. With that being said, Trump making weird pseudo gay nigga videos is crazy. It's crazy. Just
And the fact is, no one's calling it out as wild.
yeah, nobody's saying anything. This is some gay nigga shit. I've never seen it before like this in my life. But there's J-Zo situation. There's also Devin's situation. I'm just here being a nice, chaotic nigga. Love y'all like cook food. Love both of y'all like cook food.
That man just throws some chaos into every conversation. All right.
See,
well,
this is why we get along so well. You're the chaotic, I'm the lawful,
and I'm somewhere in between.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, y'all. And on that note, I think we're going to go ahead and leave y'all with the quote of the night. Never forget what you are, for surely the world will not. Make it your strength, then it can never be your weakness. Armor yourself in it, and it can never be used to hurt you. George R. R. Martin by Game of Thrones. The book. As always, I've been your boy John.
It's Dev.
This guy. Gotta be said.
Peace.